Before we go, make sure you support the channel by subscribe. For the first 100 times I tried, that train was as far as I got. Obsession has a funny way of sneaking up on you. One minute, you're a regular college kid with a quirky hobby. The next, you're the hermit down the hall. I was stuck in my room, a self-made prison, chasing after something that felt like it was always just out of reach. I read forum after forum, piecing together scraps of information like I was trying to solve a crime. My computer was a graveyard of dead ends. I skipped class, then I skipped meals. My roommate stopped knocking on the door to invite me out. Frustration boiled over. This should have been easy. No rules, no guidelines. Just get there. But I couldn't. The floor felt like a slab of concrete under me. My eyes wouldn't close. They were glued to the wall. Every breath I took was tinged with anger, my positive affirmations twisted into self-loathing. My train was a bottomless pit to nowhere. I cursed at myself, my words rushed and tumbling over each other in an almost ritualistic fervor. Anger and frustration bubbled from some dark corner of my mind, fueling me for what I had to do next. Then, hesitating only briefly, I grabbed a handful of pushpins from the posters on my wall, lining them up before I stabbed them into my hand. And that, it turned out, is how you get to a pyme. The pain was bone-deep, shocking. And a gateway, it was instantaneous. A blink, and the world I knew was replaced by the endless nothing of a pyme. It was viscerally satisfying in a way I had never felt before. The longer I walked, the more it seemed to awaken, responding to my presence. I embraced the feeling of being lost. With each step, the halls seemed to elongate, a perspective warping subtly, angles softly skewing until I wasn't sure if I was moving forward or simply standing still as the world stretched away from me. The red of the walls was visceral, as if the paint itself pulsed with life, while the white of the floor tiles was the stark white of bones picked clean. The air was still buzzing with a latent potential, as if the space was holding its breath, waiting for something to occur. I called out a soft hello, but my voice seemed to be swallowed immediately by the space, as if it was eager to have it. And while it felt silly at first, I got comfortable with speaking to the maze as if it were an old friend, commenting on the quirks of its design like I used to tease my friends. I don't know how many times I went there. Each step was a success. Each new long, empty stretch was my favorite adventure. The prizes all felt so real in my hands, cool and smooth before they broke apart like fallen sand sculptures. I walked the bare hallways of Epimothy. For hours I stared at nothing, and my prize on a jagged pedestal that erupted from the tiled floor like a bloody thorn through ice was a delicate white feather that smelled like flowers when it crumbled away into dust. I put razor blades under my nails in the quiet of my room. And at the end of the maze, a red fountain pen leaked wetly onto my fingers before the ink turned into a chalky powder that caught in the air, flowing around my face like pollen and then disappearing entirely. On the bare wooden floor of my bedroom, I poured out uncooked rice, kneeling and performing the shifting routine that had become my ritual. Then I rounded the red corners of Epime, found a small strawberry on the ground, cast all in white that melted like ash on my tongue and tasted like metal. Again and again and again, I found myself compelled to return, each journey requiring a more severe penance. Each object at the end pulling me deeper into an obsession I could neither understand nor control. There was also a growing sense of something else, something that was both sad and a relief. I no longer felt my mother's presence shadowing me. There was no one to share in my triumphs, no one to witness my journey. It was just me and the red and white and the closed doors and the ever-extending corridor, and that was enough. In the reality I started to think of as a boring pit stop until I returned to Epimothy, my reflection in the mirror looked gaunt, and my grades on the assignments that I did manage to turn in started to plummet. My roommates stopped knocking. Their laughter and conversations from the living room grew quieter. Or maybe I stopped hearing them. Even the professors that I had gotten along with stopped asking if everything was okay, their eyes glossing over me during lectures, as if I had become invisible. Sometimes begrudgingly, I considered the implications of what I was doing. Did everyone need to torture themselves like I did? If so, why didn't they say anything in the forums? Were they ashamed to talk about it like me? But I couldn't stop. Each shift promised a deeper understanding, something just beyond the next corner. I started noticing a pattern. The deeper you went into a Pimetha, the more convoluted the way back. The walls would fall apart and reassemble themselves. The longer you were there, the more it changed and the more it grew. Until the last time I went down the last hallway, and the creature was there. His eyes froze me in place. One a milky white, clouded like a corpse's. The other a piercing blood red that seemed to pulse with every beat of my heart. They were suspended in a bare skull, topped by twisted horns that scraped the top of the ceiling. White smoke dribbled out of his mouth and down his chin like it was something liquid, dripping down to the tiled floor. It seemed as if he was made of the walls and the walls were made of him. The room seemed barely large enough to contain him and his rotting, hooved body that looked like an eviscerated moose on its hind legs. He wrapped his clawed hands around mine, placing something in them I couldn't see, lost in his stare. My final prize. Who made you? I thought, horrified to my core. And through smiling, pointed white teeth stained with red blood, he replied, You. My own eyes snapped open, and the gaping walls of Epimeth were replaced by the more simple geometry of my bedroom walls. It was an abrupt, jolting emergence like being thrown out of a speeding car. I lay there for what felt like hours, my chest heaving, as if I had run miles, though I hadn't moved an inch. My body was anchored again to the floor, to a room, to the stifling ordinariness of the reality I had started with. From that day on, my strange addiction to reality shifting broke. The urge to leave and explore Epimetha no longer buzzed under my skin. Instead, when I thought about it, I felt a dread that went bone deep. Now, in theory, I'm back in this world of textbooks, of Friday day drinking, of last-minute cramming sessions before finals. I'm making up for lost meals and lost points towards my GPA. I'm back to missing my mother more than ever, without the twisting labyrinth of Epimetha to distract me. But I can't shake this feeling that I only have one foot back here and the other is stuck back in the other reality. I feel like I'm being pulled in two, and I feel like I'm being watched. When I'm in a grocery store, walking down an empty aisle, I can't help but think it could go on forever, just like those corridors. I swear I can see it, stretching out in front of me like a tunnel with no end, before I blink it away and I'm back in the fluorescent light. I'll be washing dishes, looking at the soap suds as they spiral down the drain, and there it is. That prickling sensation at the back of my neck, and suddenly it's all just dust in my hands. I sip my coffee in the morning and it tastes like dead flowers and ash. Or scrolling through my phone at night, a stupid pop-up, with stark white text against a red background, and the feeling returns, crawling up my spine. The letters fading to powder in front of me before I force my eyes to see them again. In the mirror I see my eyes reflected back at me, red with exhaustion. But for a split second I swear they're not mine. They're too knowing, too empty, too white and too right. I see Epimetha in every empty classroom, the alleyways on the walk home, my own bedroom before I turn on the light. I checked the old forums the other day. I don't know what I expected. Maybe other people were still walking around at Pimetha, enjoying the solitude and looking for answers to their own mysteries. I thought I'd find comfort in numbers, in knowing that I wasn't the only one haunted by the red and white pattern. But there was no relief, just a tightening knot of dread in my stomach as I scrolled through posts and comments. I'm not alone, but that doesn't make it better. It makes it worse. because whatever's happening, it's escalating. One person posted about seeing eyes in the reflection of their TV screen, white and red, only visible if he looked at them from the corner of his eye. Another person recounted how the white curtains of the living room were suddenly sliced, long red streaks appearing as though an invisible claw had torn through the fabric, but that only half of their family could see the marks. Another said all she did was read about it. She hadn't even been able to shift fully, struggling like I once had, but she had started sleepwalking anyway, always waking with her face pressed painfully hard against a dead-end hallway in her own house. The most recent content, aside from those accounts, was a series of furious, panicked demands that the mods delete anything and everything about a Epimethi, like it was some kind of contagion. I can't escape the feeling that those empty hallways were never really empty. Maybe we just couldn't see what was watching us. I hear the creature's voice sometimes, echoing in the quieter moments. It's not words I can describe easily. More like a distorted frequency than human speech. I feel the beating, burning cold of the unseen things he left in my hands, and the questions burned into my brain like a brand. Did I ever really leave Epimethi? Or did it just get more clever at making the maze? And if I did leave, and I brought it back with me, how long until this world starts to crumble away too?